He said it quietly, no drama, no build-up. We were sitting in his study on a Tuesday afternoon in late winter. The radiator was clicking against the cold. The room smelled of old books and something like cedar, and I had been talking for almost 40 minutes about money, about the debt, about the years of trying to outrun it, the months of discipline followed by the slow slide back, the invisible ceiling that seemed to reset every time I got close to it. I had been articulate about my problem. I thought I understood my problem. And then Rabbi Mordechai Frankel, who had been listening the entire time with his eyes half closed, the way very old teachers listen when they are hearing beneath the words, he opened his eyes, looked at me directly, and said 7 words. He said, "You are in a relationship with debt." And then he went back to looking at his hands. I sat with those 7 words for a long time in that room. I did not fully understand them yet, but something underneath my understanding shifted immediately. The way the ground shifts before you know there has been an earthquake. By the time I walked out of that building and into the cold February air, something in the architecture of how I thought about money had begun to rearrange. It would take me another 3 months to see what that rearrangement had made possible. But when I did see it, I went back to Rabbi Frankel and I said, "That sentence." And he smiled. He said, "It is always one sentence. The Torah is one sentence. Everything else is commentary." My name is Rabbi Naomi, and I have been a student of ancient Jewish wisdom for over 30 years. The texts, the law, the mystical tradition, and the practical daily wisdom that has never made it into any book you can find in a mainstream store. My teacher's teacher studied under one of the great sages of the 20th century. The chain of transmission in this tradition is not metaphorical. It is the thing itself. What I am about to share with you is not my opinion. It is the distilled understanding of generations of teachers who spent their entire lives inside this question. What is the nature of the relationship between a human being and money? And what determines whether that relationship produces flourishing or constriction? Have you ever stopped to honestly ask yourself, not as a financial exercise, not as a budgeting audit, but as a genuine inquiry, what you actually believe about debt? Not what you know about it, not what you have read about it, what you believe about it. In the place below conscious thought, in the place where your body responds before your mind catches up, what does debt mean to you? Is it failure? Is it a moral stain? Is it proof of something about who you are? Is it a sentence that has already been handed down and you are simply serving it? I have asked this question of hundreds of people over the years, and what I have found, without exception, is that the people who carry debt the longest are not carrying it because they lack financial knowledge. They are carrying it because of what they believe the debt says about them. The debt has become an identity, and you cannot budget your way out of an identity. You cannot discipline your way out of an identity. You cannot hustle your way out of an identity. The identity has to shift first, and the identity shifts when the sentence at the center of it changes. This is not motivational language. This is the precise teaching of a tradition that understood the mechanics of the human mind 3,000 years before modern psychology had a vocabulary for them. Stay with me. The sentence that changed everything for me, the full explanation of what Rabbi Frankel meant and why it is true, is what I am going to walk you through today. But you need every layer of this. Leave before I finish, and you will have the feeling of the insight without the structure to hold it. The structure is what makes it permanent. Before we go further, I want you to type the phrase "new sentence" in the comments right now. 2 words, new sentence. Because that is what today is, the beginning of a new internal sentence about you and money. The old sentence has been running long enough. Type new sentence, do it now, then stay with me. Here is what I know about where you are. You have tried the conventional approaches. You have made the spreadsheet. You have read the books. the ones about debt snowballs and debt avalanches and interest rate optimization and the psychology of spending. You have had the periods of discipline, the months where you tracked every purchase and made real progress. And then something happened. A setback, a month where the numbers conspired against the plan, a moment of exhaustion that produced a decision you regretted, and then the slow slide back to familiar territory. And with the slide came a quieter but more damaging thing than the debt itself, a conclusion. A conclusion that said, "This is just how it is for me. This is my pattern. I have tried and I have failed enough times to know that this is structural. This is who I am. This is the ceiling that was installed above my head before I had any say in the matter." That conclusion, that quiet, settled conclusion, is the real debt. The financial debt is the shadow of it. And I say this not to dismiss the financial debt, because the financial debt is real and its weight is real. I say it because in 30 years of working with people inside this question, I have never seen sustained financial freedom arrive in someone who had not first cleared the inner debt. The inner debt always precedes the outer one, and when the inner debt is addressed with the same precision and intention that the ancient teachers brought to every question of human life, what tends to follow, in a time frame that surprises people, is movement in the outer world that no amount of budgeting had been able to produce. The cracked vessel. This is the image I return to again and again because it is the one that makes the principle most visible. Imagine you are trying to fill a vessel with water. You carry the water carefully. You pour it in with discipline. But the vessel has a crack you cannot see from the outside because it runs through the interior wall. The water enters. The water drains. You carry more water. You pour more carefully. The crack remains. You can spend a lifetime optimizing the water carrying and never address the crack, and the vessel will never hold what you pour into it. The crack is the inner debt. It is the belief that you are someone who loses, someone who slides back, someone for whom financial peace is a destination that exists for other people, but not for you. That belief is the crack. And the ancient wisdom is very precise. You repair the vessel before you fill it, not simultaneously, before. The Talmud teaches, in a discussion that seems on its surface to be about something entirely different, that the condition of the inner determines the capacity of the outer. The rabbis were speaking about spiritual readiness, but the principle is not metaphorical, it is architectural. What you can hold in the outer world is determined by the integrity of your inner vessel. And the integrity of the inner vessel is determined by what you believe, specifically by the sentence that runs at the foundation of your self-understanding. This is what Rabbi Frankel was pointing to when he said those 7 words. You are in a relationship with debt. He was not diagnosing a financial condition. He was identifying an inner sentence. Let me tell you what I mean by a relationship with debt, because this is the precise center of the teaching, and I want to be exact. When you are in a relationship with something, that thing has a place in your identity. You organize around it. You make decisions based on what the relationship requires. You think about it when you wake up and when you go to sleep. You explain yourself in terms of it. You defend it when it is challenged, because challenging the relationship feels like challenging who you are. This is what most people who carry long-term debt have built, without meaning to, without choosing it, a relationship with the debt. The debt is not something they are passing through. The debt is somewhere they live, and the home you live in, you maintain. You do not leave a home. You maintain it, even when you hate it, because leaving means you have no place to be. I watched this in a man I will call David, not his real name. He came to me in his late 40s. He had carried the same approximate level of debt for 14 years. Not growing dramatically, not shrinking, just present, a permanent companion. He was intelligent, employed, not extravagant in his spending. There was no obvious financial catastrophe to point to. He simply could not move it. We spent 3 sessions talking before I asked him the question that I eventually ask everyone. I said, if the debt were gone tomorrow, completely cleared, gone, who would you be? He looked at me for a long time. Then he said something I have never forgotten. He said, I don't know. I've been the guy with the debt problem for so long, I don't know what I am without it. There it was, the relationship. The debt was not a problem he was solving. The debt was a role he had been playing, and the role had become load-bearing. It was holding up part of his identity. He was the responsible one who was working on it. He was the cautious one who had learned hard lessons. He was the one who knew better now. Remove the debt, and all of that narrative collapses. The ancient teachers understood this. They called it the klipa of a situation, the shell that has grown around a spiritual wound, and that over time becomes more familiar than the healing would be. The shell is painful, but it is known, and what is known feels safer than what is open. I told David what Rabbi Frankel told me. I said, you are in a relationship with debt. And then I said, the work is not the financial work, not yet. The work is to understand who you are without the relationship. We spent 6 weeks on that question alone, 6 weeks of conversations about identity, about the sentence at his center, about what he actually believed, underneath the spreadsheets and the discipline and the setbacks, about what he deserved and what he was capable of, and what the purpose of his financial life actually was. He did not enjoy those 6 weeks. He pushed back often. There were 3 sessions where he was certain this was a waste of time, that he needed strategies, not philosophy, that talking was not paying down principle. I let him push. I stayed with the question. And at the end of the 6th week, something broke open. He said, I think I have believed my whole adult life that I am the kind of person who almost makes it. He said it quietly, the way people say the true thing when they finally stop performing. Almost. Every time. I get close and then something happens and I am back to almost. I have been waiting for the almost, expecting the almost. I have been confirming this sentence every time it arrives and then wondering why the sentence keeps writing itself. That is the inner debt. That sentence, I am the kind of person who almost makes it, was the crack in the vessel. It did not matter how much financial water he poured in. The crack drained it. Within 4 months of the conversation where he named the sentence, his debt had reduced by more than it had in the previous 3 years combined. Not because his income changed dramatically, because his decisions changed. The way he spoke about money changed. The way he responded to unexpected expenses changed. The relationship had ended. He had become someone who was passing through debt rather than someone who lived there. So let me give you the precise practice, because naming the problem is not the same as resolving it, and I want to give you something you can do today, not just something to think about. The first thing is this: find the sentence, your version of it, not mine, not David's, yours. The sentence is the one that runs below the conscious narrative. It is rarely dramatic. It usually sounds like a reasonable, modest assessment of reality. Something like, money always runs out before the month does, or I am not good with money, or debt is just part of life for people like us, or the version that is harder to catch, not a statement but a posture. A settled, low-grade expectation that financial stability is something that happens to other kinds of people. Whatever form it takes in you, it is there. You will know it when you find it because it will feel true, not painful, not charged, just quietly and completely true. That quality of settled, unremarkable truth is the signature of the inner sentence. Find it. Write it down exactly as it sounds in your own voice. The second thing, the ancient teachers taught that an inner sentence, what they sometimes called a dot, a deeply held knowing, cannot be evicted by argument. You cannot reason your way out of a sentence that does not operate through reason. It operates through repetition and through the emotional confirmation it has received over years. You evict it not by arguing with it, but by replacing it with a different sentence that is equally specific, equally personal, and that you subject to the same repetition. But here is the precision that most modern versions of this teaching miss. The replacement sentence must be true, not aspirational, not positive in the motivational sense, true. The sentence, "I am becoming someone who passes through financial difficulty rather than lives in it," is true. It names a process, not a destination. It does not claim an outcome. It describes a direction. That kind of sentence can take root. A sentence that overclaims, "I am wealthy, I am abundant, money flows to me easily," will be rejected by the deeper layer of the mind because that layer knows it is not yet true. The replacement must be grounded in honest possibility. Write the new sentence, in your own voice, specific to your situation. The third thing, speak the new sentence aloud in your own home, at the threshold of each day, meaning when you wake, before the phone, before the news, before the first transaction of the morning. This is not affirmation culture. This is the ancient understanding that the first frequency of the day sets the tuning of everything that follows. The threshold of the morning is a doorway. What you speak at a doorway, the tradition taught, enters the space. Speak the old sentence at the door of each day, and you walk into the day in the frequency of the old relationship. Speak the new sentence, and you walk in differently. You will not feel different immediately. Feeling follows practice, not the reverse. Stay with it for 30 days before you evaluate. The fourth thing, and this is where the financial and the spiritual converge in a way that surprises people, begin to release something, not dramatically. The tradition of tzedakah, often translated as charity, but more precisely translated as justice, as right distribution, was understood by the ancient teachers as a practice that breaks the grip of the scarcity identity. When you give from a place of genuine choice, not from guilt, not from performance, but from the inner posture of someone who trusts that the source of provision is not finite, you enact the new sentence with your body, not just your voice. The body's enactment carries weight that the voice alone cannot. Even a small act of intentional giving, done with the inner posture of someone who is passing through scarcity rather than living in it, begins to rewrite the relationship at the level where the relationship actually lives. The complete framework, the full architecture that I teach across the breadth of this wisdom, covering the household, the calendar, the speech, the objects, the giving cycle, the threshold practices, and the specific ancient tools for breaking the grip of long-term financial identity, is available through the link in the description. What I have shared today is the keystone of that architecture. The keystone is real, but a keystone without the arch around it cannot hold what it is designed to hold. If you are ready for the full arch, the link is there. Everything you need to take the next step is in the description. Not because I want to sell you something, because you came here for a reason. And the reason you came here is almost never the surface reason. Now let me tell you what to watch for. Because the practice I have just given you will be tested. And the test comes in a specific and predictable form. In the first week of working with the new sentence, your mind will produce evidence for the old one. This is not sabotage. This is how identity operates. A deeply embedded sentence, when challenged, generates its own defense. A bill will arrive that seems to confirm the old pattern. A financial disappointment will land that whispers, "See, this is how it always goes." You must understand this for what it is, not evidence that the old sentence is true, but evidence that you have touched something real and the old structure is defending itself. This is the moment most people stop. They take the evidence as confirmation and step back into the familiar relationship. Do not stop. Name what is happening out loud. Say, "This is the defense of the old sentence. I see it. I do not accept it as the final word," and return to the practice. The people who hold through the first week discover that what comes in the second week is different in texture, not dramatically, but unmistakably. That difference in texture is the reshit, the first fruit. Acknowledge it. Do not let it pass unmarked. What you receive today is not information. Information is what you have had in abundance. What you receive today is a diagnosis. A diagnosis that, if you act on it with the precision and the consistency that the ancient teachers always demanded, not casually, not when convenient, but as a daily discipline, what tends to follow, in my experience watching real people apply this over real time, is a quiet momentum that builds in a direction you stopped believing was still available to you. One sentence changed 12 years of debt thinking, not because it was magic, because it was true. And the truth, when it finally lands in the right layer of the mind, does not need force. It simply begins to work. Tell me in the comments, what is your old sentence? Write it out exactly as it sounds in your own head. Do not dress it up. Do not soften it. Write it the way it actually runs. Naming it publicly is the first act of separation from it. I will read every comment. I am looking for the ones who are ready to name the thing. Next week, I am going to reveal the specific Hebrew concept that the ancient teachers used to describe the moment when a financial pattern breaks, what they called it, what causes it, and what you must do in the 24 hours immediately following that moment to seal the breakthrough rather than let it quietly reverse. If you have ever experienced a sudden improvement in your finances that then slipped back within weeks, next week's teaching will explain exactly why that happened and what you can do differently. Subscribe now and the bell on. You will not want to find that you missed it. If this teaching moved something in you, if it named what has been unnamed, if it gave you the diagnosis you did not know you were waiting for, press the like button. You are telling the platform that this kind of teaching has value, and the platform will carry it to the next person who is sitting right now inside the quiet weight of a financial identity they did not choose and do not know how to leave. Press it for them. Go find your sentence. Write it down tonight. Then write the new one beneath it. Speak the new one tomorrow morning before anything else. The ancient teachers never promised overnight transformation. They promised something better, a direction. And a direction held with consistency and intention becomes a destination. Shalom.